Good evening, Sector 001. I'm TJ Yesnak, your host for the Jupiter Station podcast, and tonight's guest has been a part of Trek history for pretty much as long as Star Trek has been Star Trek. He got his start in the TOS episode Miri. You may have seen him in a little movie called Star Trek 3, and a couple of roles in Voyager and Deep Space Nine. Without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Phil Morris.
Hey TJ, how
Hi,
you
Phil.
doing?
Oh, so far so good. Thanks for joining us tonight. How are you?
It's my pleasure, brother. My pleasure. I always love to talk about Trek and my experiences in that universe, or those universes, as they were.
Oh, so many universes. So I have older and younger Trek fans. Can you give us a brief bio?
A Trek bio or just my bio, personally, Phil Morris bio.
Probably just a general bio is fine.
There you go. Well, of course, I'm Phil Morris. I've been an actor for quite a long time. My father is Greg Morris from the original Mission Impossible series that ran from 1966 to 1973. Um, I have two sisters, and my mom's amazing. You might have seen me in shows like Seinfeld, Doom Patrol, Smallville. I've been a fixture in the Hollywood community for a long time. I continue to work. I love working on all the Star Treks that I've done, and that brings you pretty much up to speed.
It does. Thank you. Um, so, as I mentioned to our guests in the intro, you were in the original series episode Miri. How did you get that?
Well, that was pretty much stunt casting. As I said, my father, Greg Morris, was in the original Mission Impossible. And in the episode Miri, if you remember, there were several kids on the show that lived on a planet that was very much like Earth, but had arrested their development because if they got to a certain stage, they would get a disease. And the producers did not want actor kids. They wanted a few actors who were like principal children in the show, in the episode, but they also wanted kids who really didn't read as actors, didn't have the polish of actors, but who understood how to comport themselves on a television set. Who better than actors' children who had been on television sets many times? So that's what they did. They hired myself, my sister Iona, John Grise and Carrie Grise, who were Tom Grise's children, who was a director at the time. The Shatner children were in it. I believe the Landau children were in it. Excuse me. And so that's how I got it. I basically was just a kid of an actor who was doing a show on the lot, and that's what you saw.
And that turned into probably one of the more popular episodes too.
Do you think?
Yeah, because anytime I hear the word Grups, that's the first thing I think of. I've been watching Star Trek since I was a kid with my dad. So
bonk bonk on the head, bonk bonk. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, same here. There's a wonderful actor in the White Lotus, the new series that's on, I believe it's on Hulu. I'm not sure. But his name is John Grise. I mean, this show is a big phenomenon. John Grise was on that show. As I said, John and Carrie Grise. Carrie's his brother. And I have a picture of me that I bring to all kinds of conventions, and I'll be at the Long Island, Trek Long Island, in about a month or so. And I'll have that picture there. John, who's on the White Lotus, is right over my shoulder as this little old kid. We're both 7 years old, 8 years old, on the set of Star Trek, and we've done pretty well for ourselves in our adult years.
And you had mentioned that you were in Doom Patrol, so you probably know one of my other guests, Stephanie Chakowski.
It depends. Who did Stephanie play? Hammerhead? Who was she in the show?
Yes, Hammerhead.
Yeah, I loved all the alter egos of Crazy Jane. Doom Patrol was a phenomenal. Well, listen, man, I have been so blessed to work in some really, really stellar productions, whether it's television, animation, video games, animation, feature animation, or features that have just been magical. Doom Patrol was one of them, and one of the characters that Stephanie played was an alter ego of one of the main characters, Crazy Jane, in the show. Brilliant actors, brilliant writing, incredible sets and scenery, and yeah, it was a crazy fun show to do. Crazy fun.
It seems like most of those science fiction or comic book kind of shows, those are the ones you can really kind of expand in and, for lack of a better term, probably just go crazy doing. Because
yeah,
there's like okay, this is what we want you to fit within, but
Mhm.
anything inside, it's all up to you.
It's interesting. I don't know if it's up to us. I take your meaning, but the extremes exist within those parameters, right? So
Yeah.
comic books, one of the reasons why as children we take to them is because the chaos and the drama is so pronounced, right? Within the context of, especially with a Stan Lee or the comic book writers that I loved as a kid, a certain morality, a certain grounded humanness that connects all the craziness. So within all that nuts and the primary colors of comic books or the outer space universality of a Star Trek, it's always grounded in a certain humanity, and it's always there's a morality play that's going on at the same time. So not only are you getting all the bells and whistles, but you're also learning a lot about empathy. You're learning a lot about camaraderie. You're learning a lot about loss, grief, and those things. And that's a wonderful place to learn it. It's a very safe place to get it from, because creators like a Gene Roddenberry and a Stan Lee, like I said, seemingly had their humanity well placed, and with it all, we're able to find such value. You see how long you've been watching Star Trek. I've been talking about it since I started it, or started to be exposed to it. So there's something to that truth and that universality that I really appreciate.
And I've told my other guests, a lot of what I became as an adult is very much grounded in Star Trek. Like you said, the empathy and the morality and the right versus wrong. That was very much grounded for me.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
I became a law enforcement officer, moved home, went into Homeland Security, and then Fire EMS. So there's a lot of empathy involved in those jobs. Um, and you remember the Deep Space Nine episode, The Siege of AR 558?
not specifically, no.
So that's like a season 6 one where Cisco and his crew kind of go to this out of the way um, forward operating base basically during like the Dominion War,
Mm-hmm.
and they've been there so long and they've been fighting for so long that they literally have like functional PTSD, and they see Jem'Hadar out of like every crevice and things like that. That led into another episode with Nog, um, and it was called "It's Only a Paper Moon," and that helped deal with PTSD.
Mm, mm.
And law enforcement, fire, EMS, I have PTSD, and this platform is actually probably one of the better ways for me to deal with that, because I get to meet so many of you guys who have such a positive influence.
Mm.
And I told um, Eugene Cordero the other night actually that a lot of modern Trek has helped me get regrounded with that positivity again. So,
Is it carrying the ethos forward, do you think, in the newer versions of the
oh,
Star Trek
absolutely,
universe?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It carries the ethos forward, and then it has, like, especially with Discovery and Strange New Worlds, it tends to like kind of modernize that a little bit too. So it's not
Right.
quite so. It's
It's more relatable in
expanded,
a way.
it's expanded the spectrum on it basically.
Right, right. Well, they deal with, like I said, the themes that are universal. So if they're universal, they're fairly timeless. And when you lean into those things, then you glean a great deal of value from them, and that they're couched in, whether it's the comic book world, or, like I said, whether it's in the world of outer space, as Star Trek and so many of these amazing offerings are right now. We all relate to it. It can mean something to everybody. You got what you got out of it. Some other people get, race relations out of it, cultural coming together, the interconnectivity of the whole thing, which is really the theme of Star Trek on many levels. We're all pretty much the same. As far as they go out into the universe, they find they're still looking at themselves, right? So I
Yeah,
really find it a
and
great
you
reflection.
mentioned the interconnectivity. I look at that, and you know, being able to see a world where racism and poverty and things like that don't exist. That goes back to what Gene Roddenberry wanted in the first place, which was hope. And it
Mm,
still, you asked if it has that ethos. It still has that ethos. It still has that hope. And I think that's probably one of the bigger things that's made Star Trek so popular over so many years.
Right. Yeah. Well, the hope itself is, especially now. Well, I say especially now. There are other times in the world it was sorely needed as well. But that again is the concept that resonates through all of us. We all hope for a better time. We hope for a brighter tomorrow. We hope for a more inclusive world. And again, I've been very fortunate in working on a lot of shows like Smallville, Doom Patrol, Mission Impossible, the new Mission Impossible that I did, that have to do with problem solving issues in the world, addressing people who have less than, creating hope. And I literally had a speech to Clark in Smallville about him being the hope for humanity. So that theme is all around me, TJ, and I really appreciate talking about it and sharing that with somebody who understands that.
Oh, wholeheartedly. And I mean, I've watched you from TOS. You did an amazing job as a Starfleet cadet in Star Trek 3, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager. That was another one. I mean, you've definitely got the theme behind Star Trek in your blood. I mean, it's woven into you.
Well, I'd like to do a lot more, quite frankly. And every time I do one of these podcasts, and to be honest with you, I rarely say no, because I really do appreciate the universe, and I'm grateful for having such a small part of such a large message. It's been a blessing, but I'm always willing to play again in the sandbox that is Star Trek, wherever they will have
you
me.
listening.
I think they know, but if they don't, are you listening?
And I mean, your comedic timing, watching you on Seinfeld, that was hilarious. I watched that character, and it's one of my favorite guest spots. I'm like, oh, this is the one with Kramer's attorney. Hold on, and I just got to sit there and watch, and it's such a caricature. Like you take like that classic attorney character and you just stretch it out, and it is so much fun to watch.
It's so fun to do. I mean, he's like a force of nature, that guy. You know what I mean? So for me, as long as I'm having fun with him and I'm getting kind of the joke, because he'll never get the joke. That's what makes him so funny. That's what makes him really endearing in many ways, is that he's so unabashed and he's so committed to his points of view and his positions, as obtuse as they may be, that we as the audience, we read into it. We're like, this flipping guy, and so I get the same out of him. And he's been, TJ, it's been really again another blessing for me, because he's existed and lived far beyond what I thought his shelf life was going to be for the show, in doing different sponsorship deals, and having done commercials. And it's the gift that keeps on giving. And again, I've been really fortunate and super grateful for it all.
Now, you mentioned you were going to be at Trek Long Island probably in about another month or so.
Yeah.
I've asked a lot of my other guests, and they've all agreed. Would you say that, you being a kid on the show, beside the point, would you say that you've kind of seen that Star Trek family firsthand, and it's one of those things where you go to these conventions and you see somebody from another show and they recognize you, and then somebody else sees you from another show?
Absolutely. And there's a lot of people I don't know, because the shows that I did were a little, they were a ways ago, and they've had so many more iterations of Star Trek since. I think the last thing I did was Voyager, and so that's a long time ago. And there have been a lot of actors that have come and gone that I have not worked with and that I don't know. But the ones that I do know and that I do see and I am familiar with, like an Avery Brooks. I did a podcast yesterday talking Smallville with Tom Welling and Michael Rosenbaum, and they asked me my favorite.
Awesome.
My favorite. It's great. It was great. We had a fun time, man. We just cut it up. Very much like this, TJ. But I was talking about. They asked me who my favorite actor was to work with, and if you notice that my career hasn't on Star Trek, I haven't worked with a lot of people one-on-one. Like one small step that I did was all by myself. I didn't have another actor that I worked with. But one of the actors that I've worked with on Star Trek that just meant so much to me was Avery Brooks. And I think possibly because I auditioned for Cisco after I'd done the new Mission Impossible, and they were looking for an African American captain. Um, I went in and I was in the final call for Cisco. And I think at the time I was just a bit young. Do you know what I mean? I just hadn't dropped a pair, as they say, um, and hadn't really figured my stride. And Cisco's very much somebody who's got his rudder in the water, and he knows what side up is. And I think I just read a bit young. Avery was the perfect choice for them. They wanted a Shakespearean type actor. Avery filled the bill. I mean, he just definitely was the man. So when I did Rocks and Shoals was the episode that I really worked with him on. He and I did a scene together in a cave, and to hear his voice and my voice, his intention and my intention, so deeply grounded, so committed. It was, man, it was like time stood still. I mean, we must have shot that scene so quickly because he and I were just such on the same page. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And Avery got into the business because my father, Greg Morris, was a huge influence on him. So he's always very respectful when we, just my journey's been really pretty magical. So yeah, man.
And I've heard a lot of people who have worked with Avery. They say he's just a force of nature of his own too, and that much power coming through Captain Cisco. I remember I was talking with one of my friends, and we were talking about the episode where Cisco punched Q. And they're like, well, what's the difference between, Cisco and Picard? Cisco, he's Hawk. Like, Picard, who's he? Captain Ahab? Like, he punched Q because he's Hawk. And then they said, who's Hawk?
Oh, gosh.
I can't talk to you right now, man.
Yeah, I've been
watch Spencer
really.
Go look it up on YouTube. And then
no, but you see what I'm saying. You see what I'm saying. That was the guy. He was the guy, and trust me, I wanted to be the guy. I definitely wanted to be the guy. But there's just a time and place for everything, and that was his time and place.
And honestly, I would kill to have the experiences you've had. You've worked on at least 4 different Star Trek projects, and what I'm discovering as I do this more and more, it's actually easier to talk to you guys. Like, if you watch my first few programs, I was like, so what's your favorite episode? It was very mechanical. I was very nervous. Sure. And as I got better at it, my kid brother is probably going to be one of my biggest influences for loosening up. He said, you're having fun. I know this. He said, I grew up with you. We watched the same stuff. He said, have fun with your guests. He said, don't be so stiff. Loosen up. Have fun with them. And everybody I've talked to has been very personable. They like to have fun with me just as much. You've been awesome thus far. I mean, this is a great interview. I told your agent Chris, I said, look, he's going to be a big get if we can get him on the show. And he responded quickly compared to like a lot of the other agents I've had to email. Chris was like right on top of that.
Yeah, he's my guy. Yeah, he's my manager guy. But TJ, it's the same way with us, and I get it. I had a lot of, I don't want to say hero worship, but a lot of people I admired because there are a lot of things I liked. And I told you I'm a comic book fan. You can see behind me, I got all kind of paraphernalia and stuff. I got a bookshelf out there. I got, I like stuff. I'm a fan of things. I respect people. I admire their accomplishments. I am ambitious. I want to reach certain heights, and they help. They're their bellwether, right? They're the thing that I can look to get to the certain places. So if and when I meet those people, if I have conversations with them, yeah, it's daunting because those are the people that I've held in high regard and high esteem. How could it not be? But as you continue to do that, as you continue to expose yourself to the people on that level that you appreciate so much and you admire so much, you realize that we're all fairly similar. We all are driven by the same things. We're all afraid of the same stuff. We all have our uniqueness, one to each other, and we couldn't really exist without one or the other. So that makes us relax. We breathe deeply in the zone, as it were.
Yeah,
Acting's no
totally.
different. You start acting, scared to death, man, nervous. You hope you remember your lines. You hope you're good at it. You hope you didn't get caught acting. All those things, and then later on, all those things go bye bye. You don't even think about it. You are just playing. That's why they call it a play, a teleplay, a screenplay. So as long as you're playing and you're enjoying yourself, can't go too far wrong.
And I had Bill Sadler on the show, who played Sloan
Great
back in
actor.
Space Nine, and he's had a ton of incredible hits that he has been a part of, and he just thought of them as, well, I didn't really think it was that big at the time, but I guess looking back on it, yeah, I mean, I guess it kind of is. And
Hmm.
he was so humble, and it was a blessing to be able to talk to him, like, one to one on a person. He said, and honestly, he said, I got to play Death in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. He said, do you know how cool it is to know that I made up the rap that Death said? And that was one of those things. I'm like, that is pretty cool, actually. Yeah, you're not wrong on that one.
I made
And he
Jerry
said,
Seinfeld laugh. You know
there
what I'm
you go.
saying? We all have our little moments that mean so much to us and are really the reason why we're doing what we do. You know what I mean? All of us were doing crazy, funny stuff in the kitchen with our parents, trying to impress them, or our friends or our teachers or our coaches or whoever. So we just extrapolated that and took that into into the world. And ultimately, people didn't tell us no enough, because trust and believe, they told us no, but they didn't tell us no enough to daunt us and keep us off our path. And that's why we keep kind of doing our monkey dance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we've got all sorts of things that we get to do, and we're blessed to be able to be on this planet to do it.
Dude, truly, truly.
So, which was your favorite to star in, for as far as Star Trek?
My favorite experience, or oh yeah, um, probably uh, One Small Step. The episode One Small Step, where I play John Kelly, Lieutenant John Kelly, who is pretty much the linchpin between NASA and the Federation. Um, and if you guys haven't seen it, you should see it. It's a pretty special episode. There's two reasons why I thought it was special. One, the episode itself, what it says, who he was. I mean, he's a seminal figure in the Star Trek mythos. There's no doubt about it. He's the first one that we know was exposed to alien life, spacecraft. First one that we know in the history of Star Trek. This is the guy. This is before Kirk, before all that, before the Federation was even founded. So he's pretty intense as a human being, as a character. That's, to me, incredibly special. Full stop. The director of the episode was a guy named Bob Picardo, who was also in Deep Space Nine, playing a character, played the Doctor. Bob Picardo and I were in the same acting class for a few years, of a man named John Lynn. John Lynn was a brilliant, masterful acting coach, who was the acting coach for many, many stars, many actors of incredible note. And Bob and I were in the class together. Bob was a little older than me. He was a little bit more senior in the class, and he's a brilliant actor. Full stop. Well, now that's my director. And in One Small Step, it was only me. I didn't act opposite to anybody else, because I was alone in my spacecraft, having gone through this spatial anomaly. So having Bob Picardo as my director was invaluable, because he could help me with all of my inner life, all of my inner workings, everything that I was doing. And remember, it's TV, so nothing's real. Nothing's real. My floating through space is me having an incredibly strong abdomen and core and holding myself upright as they push me on a gurney through space. So when I'm going to reach these, that's me, my body doing it. There weren't wires and cables. No, no, no. All of the emotional reality I had to self-generate, because I was acting with no one other than the camera, Bob, and the situation. So that, to me, was really, really special. That was the epitome of an acting exercise. And Bob gave me the greatest compliment one night when we were, and I've told this story before, and I'll tell it till I expire from this planet. We were at the Paramount water tank, which is where they shot Moses, where the seas parted. Very famous. And it was very early in the morning. We just finished shooting all week. I was done. And there's only 2 cars in the parking lot, mine and Bob's. And I went to my car, and Bob is there, and he's like, man, you exhibited everything our teacher ever taught us. I'm so proud of you. I just broke down. And usually when I tell that story, I break down and I just can't get through it. I guess I'm getting more mature now. But that was so special. And to have one of your peers who knew the show intricately and intimately, because he's on it, compliment you in that way. There's no Academy Award, there's no paycheck that can pay off like that.
No, there's nothing quite like it when your friend pays you a compliment, because that's from the heart.
Truly. So, yeah, man.
So have you seen any of the new Trek, or is it all, for lack of a better term, virgin territory for you?
I work a lot. And I just finished doing the Upshaws a couple weeks ago, which is a show on Netflix with Wanda Sykes and Mike Epps. I just finished an audiobook. Sorry, excuse me. I'm busy. I just don't have a lot of time to absorb that universe right now. And there's a lot to absorb. There's a lot out there. And to be quite honest with you, I have never been a Trekkie. I've been an admirer of the universe and admirer of the show. And it's almost better for me not to be, because when I go do the show, my characters on they don't know there's a show. They don't know they're doing a television show. So it's really better for me to stay a little bit ignorant of it all and just know that there's amazing work that's being done, like Below Decks. It's hilarious. Upper Decks, maybe it's called. Hilarious. But no, I'm not a real follower of the universe at this point. I watch all the movies, though. All of them.
Well, that I can kind of understand, because everything kind of ties in.
And it's big format. It's like, I love that stuff, man. I love going to a theater still, in the dark in the theater, and then the sound, and it has to be as big and bodacious as I can get it, or else I'll just stay home.
When I figured out what the difference between full screen and widescreen was, it opened my eyes.
Come on now.
The little black lines at the top and bottom of the screen used to drive me crazy, and now I can't seem to get it enough. Everything, because you're missing like this much of the screen, and like right. That's like part of the story.
It's exactly right.
Okay. Let me see here. I had a question, and old age apparently is setting in, because it said, "Nope, we're gonna go for a run. We'll be back."
I'll come back. We can always do chapter 2.
There we go. Do you have any charities that are kind of near and dear to your heart that you want to kind of put out there?
Quite frankly, Child Help is a big one. Child Help USA. So they deal with abused and battered children that have been abandoned. That's really the only charity that I commit to and I give to. Children are in need more than any of us. So they're the least capable of anybody in our society. So I try to assist children as much as possible. I do a lot of speaking, but no, I have no organization that I want people to reach out to. Do me a favor and take care of yourselves. Do me a favor and be the best you can be. That's the charity I want to contribute to, this human race thing. We seem to be having a difficulty these days with it. So I want us all to take stock of ourselves, before we start pointing fingers and saying who did what to who and where did it go wrong and how it hurt you. Look in the mirror and make sure you're doing everything you can for yourself, and then pay that forward. If we can all do that, then we're living the Gene Roddenberry dream, right? Then we're living the dream of the utopia that we all crave. The lack of poverty, the lack of judgment, racism, culturalism, religionism, all the isms. Let's get rid of them. But it starts here first.
And for the love of God, take a deep breath before you say anything.
And know that you don't know somebody else's struggle. TJ just talked about his PTSD. I mean, we don't know what people are going through. Sometimes it's just listening. Sometimes it's just give them a hug, a pat on the back, give them an honest handshake instead of some BS tap and you walk on, connect with people. I mean, that's how this whole conversation today started, the interconnectivity.
Absolutely. And that's probably the main reason that I like doing this so much, is just because I can get my message out to so many people and do my little bit to help.
Right.
It's a 30, 45-minute show that they watch, and it's 45 minutes that they get away from all the stuff that's outside. So it's not much, but it's something.
You bring up a really good point, because in the entertainment value that is Star Trek, there's also that beautiful message, right? So we're given this beautiful message wrapped up in this very exciting, very entertaining package. And that's magical to me. When you can do that, when you can not just give us the bells and whistles and the great visuals and effects and characters and makeup. I mean, it's just extraordinary, right? But within all of that, that's not the show. That's what brings you to it. And then the kernel of it, the essence of it, is exactly what we're doing now, is the exchange of humanity. And it takes all different forms and levels and beings, even it goes beyond race, right? It's almost the extreme, it's beings.
But it's like when we were in school, and the teacher says, give us the main idea of the story. People who watch Star Trek, they get that main idea, and then they carry that main idea forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's good. I hope so. I hope that's we need it now more than ever. It's time for us to drop our guard, drop our filters, and just come together, really.
Most definitely. Phil, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Typically, it takes me a couple of days to do the editing on this, and I'll actually send out a link to Chris, and he'll probably forward it on to you.
He will.
But typically, we hit YouTube Sunday nights, and then over the course of the week after, I usually hit the audio platforms with it too. So
okay, let me know. I will. I'll shout it out to everybody.
Oh, definitely. I appreciate it, Phil. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, buddy. Talk to you soon.
Have a good one.
Okay.
Here at Jupiter Station, we've partnered with Purple Carrot to bring you the best in vegan foods. From meal kits and ready-to-eat foods to vegan grocery offerings, Purple Carrot has the healthy options you're looking for. Go to purplecarrot.com and use promo code TJ30 to get 30% off your order today.
Hello, Sector 001. The Jupiter Station podcast is made possible by the support and sponsorship of viewers like you. If you like what you see, then please consider supporting what you like. Our Patreon membership has a few different tiers to fit your budget. Go to patreon.com/Jupiter Station Podcast today for more information and to sign up. Thank you.